120 seconds. 110 seconds. 100 seconds. 90 seconds. 80 seconds. 70 seconds. 60 seconds. 50 seconds. 40 seconds. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
'Hi.
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Okay, my friends, once again, it is indeed time to get our talk on. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, J.C. McCauley, along with the champions of talk in studio 1A, none other than Jonathan Small in the house. Morning, Jonathan. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, and you, Stan?
I'm doing very good. How was your weekend?
The weekend was nice. You know, you can't beat this past weekend. I mean, unfortunately, I was not able to attend the parade for the UConn Huskies.
The Huskies
basketball.
parade.
But that was a nice event. I heard about it. And
Bring your mic.
okay, sorry about that. Feel like springtime. I mean, it was a little nippy yesterday. I thought it was going to be a little warmer, but it was still sunny outside.
Yeah.
So here it's going to be in the 80s towards the end of the week in Connecticut, at least. I don't know about other parts of the country. So it's going to feel actually like summertime pretty soon, Stan.
Yeah. There we go. Get a little light on you.
Light.
There we go.
Okay, yeah. You always
He's over there looking all dark.
I wasn't even paying attention to the lighting, Stan.
I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with Jonathan's light.
Okay. That looks a lot better, actually.
That looks, there you go.
Much
there you go.
better.
Now you see you.
Yeah, you're a professional, Stan.
I try. I try. You know, it's live television. What do you want?
Live television.
These things happen. It happens to the best. That means it has to happen to me.
Yeah. You're only human, Stan.
So you were saying though, you didn't get a chance to go to the Huskies parade.
I had to work that day, and just the timing. I couldn't really stress myself out. Just the rush to get down there. I wouldn't really enjoy it the way I wanted to if I would have did it that way. And I didn't even get a chance to even watch it on television. I mean, I just heard it was 45,000 people that had attended. So kind of like you were saying last week, Stan, if you put something downtown that people really want, people will attend.
They'll come.
They'll come.
If you build it, they'll find it and they'll come to it. If it's something they want. If it's something they're not interested in, then they're not going to come.
Well, the parade, obviously, that's something that people wanted to see and attend. I guess people all throughout the state of Connecticut attended this parade. And did you go? Did you?
I did not go. I was in a meeting on Saturday, so I was unable to attend. But I can look in this monitor right here to see who's at the door, and I can see activity. 2 blocks over where they pass by. So, yeah.
Well, 45,000 people. That's quite a bit of people.
They all met down there at the Civic Center, all rallying around the XL Center, and I saw that. You can catch some of it online.
And I don't know how this happened, but U.S. Senator Blumenthal broke his leg. A
fan tripped and fell on his leg, and he went down, and it fractured his leg. I'm surprised that they let people get that close to him.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's a U.S. Senator. And
I mean, he's always in the parade type things. He's generally, somebody accessible, run up on him. But, it's not like he's in this ring of security like he's Michael Jackson or something.
Well, U.S. senators, they don't get the same security that the president and the vice president of the country. They don't get that type of security.
They don't weld the manhole covers down and all that other stuff for lowly senators.
Right.
Bomb squad sniffing everything out 2 weeks before they get there. Snipers on the roof. Yeah. Stealth helicopters up in the air. Drones. He's just a senator.
Well, a U.S. senator is a pretty prestigious job. I mean,
no doubt,
prestigious position. He has a lot of power and influence.
But he's not the leader of the. He's not the leader of the free world.
No, he's not.
He's just a lowly senator.
Well, I don't know about that. But again, hopefully you like hip hop music, Stan, or hip hop.
I do. I can't wait for I can't wait to have this interview. Every time I go online and upload our meetings from the Greater Hartford African American Alliance, the Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg.
Dr. Dre. Super Bowl halftime video is there.
Oh yeah.
And I have to watch. I get chills thinking about it because it was like the best to me. I know a lot of people had issues, but they don't appreciate music.
Right.
And they don't appreciate the greatness. Because in my opinion, though it's a worldwide genre, still here in the United States, there are still powers who want to kind of suppress that. But the originality, the energy, the everything about the music during that halftime was just off the chain.
Right, I do remember that halftime.
World's
show.
Largest genre of music, most popular music genre on the planet.
Is it
from what I'm
hip hop?
From what I'm told, yes.
Well,
I think, but we will discuss these things, I'm sure.
I'll definitely have an expert.
Yeah,
that can definitely go.
50 years of hip hop.
You're right on the money because that was the whole topic of the whole theme of this show, Stan. So you're right.
You sent over the information, so like a walking genius. But I did know that though.
You did know it.
Yeah, I knew that.
Okay.
I try to stay up on things, John.
All right. I didn't know how you feel about hip hop. I love
hip hop.
Okay.
Right. All right. Nonetheless, and we're going to jump right into the interview. Of course, every Monday we have guests from around the world, and they join us with their expertise. We're very fortunate that we've got a great producer here, Jonathan, who gets great folks from all over the world. So why don't we jump right into that interview? So, Mr. Small, you have the floor, sir.
Well, this morning on Morning Talk Live with J. Stan McCauley Talk Show, we have a pioneer in the hip-hop industry who has a tremendous amount of knowledge of the beginning stages of hip-hop, and he also had a tremendous influence and impact on the sound of hip-hop music to go along with many other different areas of the hip-hop, not just music, but the whole culture behind it as well. The guest this morning on Morning Talk Live with J. Stan McCauley Talk Show is CEO, founder of Cold Chillin Records, and he's also a producer and manager, and I'm pretty sure many other professional titles to go along with that. No other than Tyrone Williams. Good morning, Tyrone. How are you doing?
Good morning, Jonathan. I'm doing pretty decent. I had a Achilles tendon accident. Both of my Achilles tendons. I had Achilles tendons operations, and I'm recovering from that, and that's pretty difficult trying to walk. I'm at the walking stage, but there was a time when I couldn't even stand after the operation, but my legs are getting stronger.
Well, that's good to know, Tyrone. Sorry to really hear about that. Tyrone, could you kind of let people know a little bit about yourself and background briefly before we get into our topic and topics of discussion?
Briefly, most people think of me in the record industry, but I think of myself more from radio because I happened to produce the first ever hip-hop radio show. It was called the Mr. Magic Rap Attack, and Mr. Magic he's left us now, but he was far ahead of his time. He decided to take these street kids, and we were kids ourselves, really, we were in our 20s, and take their cassettes. There were no records. It was pre-Rapper's Delight, so there were no records, and we would play cassettes for kids off the street. And we were on a station called WHBI, where we had to pay $50 an hour to be on. And we came on 2 a.m. But kids would tape our show and take it to school the next day. And it got to a point where if you didn't have a copy of the Mr. Magic Rap Attack, then you weren't cool. So we kind of grew by word of mouth. And because these songs we were playing, kids would actually go, songs that didn't exist, just tapes, cassettes. And kids would go to the record stores looking for them, and the record stores had no idea what they were talking about. And they would say, we heard it on the Mr. Magic Rap Attack. Eventually, we started being contacted by record labels such as Sugar Hill, Enjoy, Profile, and Tommy Lee. And they wanted to know about these songs. And we actually became an A&R source for these independent labels because the majors were not involved yet. And, we signed groups like Houdini, because we had a guy named Jalil. He answered the phone for us. He worked the rap. We signed them. We signed the Fearless Four. We signed the Force MDs. We signed the Treacherous Three. We signed Steps of Sonic, Roxanne Shante, and so on and so on.
Well, Tyrone, this August the 11th, 2023 is going to be classified as the 50th year anniversary of hip-hop music. And for many people out there that's not familiar with the beginning stages of hip-hop music, before we even get to, let's say, August the 11th, 1973, what kind of led up towards the development of hip-hop music, in your opinion?
Disco. Disco led to hip-hop. Disco was the music, but I want to say our disco, meaning black disco, was a little different. We played a lot of instrumentals, mixing songs. The Caucasian population wasn't even the mix of records yet. They played one record, and then they would talk, and then just like radio, and then play the next one. So because of technology, because maybe some of you can remember, I don't know how old you are, but there was a time when inside your living room you had a hi-fi or a record player.
Right.
It was just you put the record on what they call the spindle, and it played. And then one day, something came out called the Gerard turntable set,
Mm-hmm.
where everything was separate. You had a turntable, you had two speakers, and you had a receiver. And that technology, that bit of technology, allowed black kids to be creative. How did they become creative at first? They could actually record a record on the cassette deck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. So then before you knew it, they had like a continuous music playing as opposed to one song stopped and the next one. They would put it on pause and put the next record. Eventually, the techniques came out, and that allowed black kids to be creative again. And they got more creative. So that started the mixing and the disco. The DJs were popular guys. Reggie Wells, Pete DJ Jones, Ron Reese Beach Plummer, Maboya, Charisma, and the original guy was a guy named Grandmaster Flowers out of Brooklyn. So they started everything, and what would happen, just to get in free, you had guys who became the MCs, where they would actually rap about the DJ. They would carry his crates with the records, and it was prestigious to be associated with the DJ.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because all the girls looked at you, and it was just something that you wanted to do, to get in, to be a part of the party, be a major part of the party. And as time went on, these those simple rhymes, so they would say things like Dr. J, I rock all day, like Elliot Ness, I am the best. And everybody had the same rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, y'all. Yes, yes, y'all. To the beat, y'all. Everybody had that. It's on like popcorn. Everything was very simple. And then you had the guys that went from that to just playing what they call break beats. That's where the Bronx comes in. Bronx calls themselves that they're the creator of the break beat. The break beat was just playing a small portion of a beat of a song. And to be honest with you, we didn't think Bronx DJs could really play because they always scratched. And scratching at that time meant you weren't good.
Mm-hmm.
It meant you couldn't make a clean mix. And they would scratch really by mistake. They just couldn't mix. Grandmaster Flash took scratching and made it an art form, as did Grand Wizard Theodore. They made scratching an art form. All right, because they didn't have 1,200 turntables. So they didn't have pitch control. They have belt drive. When you have, I don't know if you know the difference, but belt drive turntables, if you try to put a record on, it has to catch up. So it would go, good times. It would always drag.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, there was no pitch control. So in the Bronx, they had belt drive turntables. So they would have, so it was never on beat. If you were dancing and they changed the record, then you would have to stop and dance again.
Right. Well, Tyrone, what's good with Tyrone? One thing about what you're saying about how hip hop got started and got developed, getting to August 11th, 1973, this so-called party, and I think it might be a lot of sometime misconceptions who really created hip hop. But let's just say, for the sake of it, the South Bronx DJ Kool Herc gets credited as being the first real hip hop record, or however you want to classify it. But what led up to this particular event that gives the credit to the South Bronx and Kool?
Well, listen, I have a problem with that. I go along with it because we need a date.
Right.
We need a date. But everybody had parties in front of their building. It's just that nobody went to the Bronx didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
So, if you're from Brooklyn, you didn't go way up to the Bronx. Harlem didn't go. You went to Harlem, but nobody went to the Bronx. So the Bronx were up there by themselves, thinking they were doing something that nobody else was doing.
Right.
Which was not the truth. But for the sake of, we need a date, everybody go and hurt crying for years. I had this party, but everybody had parties in front of their building. There was no big deal to that from before 1973. But it's okay. We go along with it because he wants to say, and he did have a club called the Hevelo in the Bronx that played it. And we have to understand this. at that time, there was nothing called hip hop.
Right.
The term hip hop started in the 80s.
Right.
It was just a party. So to claim that the name hip hop from 1973, it just didn't exist. It was disco.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the groups had names like Disco 4, Disco B, Disco Mario. Everybody had disco in their name. So, we guys or people forget that there was no such thing as hip hop. There was no such thing as rap.
Right.
It was called MCing.
Right.
And the term rap came from Sylvia Robinson because she wanted to make it palatable for the rest of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And when she came out with Rapper's Delight, she thought that was, and the group, the guys who were supposed to be on that song was Spoonie G, Grandmaster Caz, and Lovebug Starsky. But they wanted to call the song MC Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that's never going to fly across the country. They wouldn't do it. She went and got two guys from a pizza shop, Big Bang Hank and Wonder Mike, and one of her friends' kids, Master G. And she made this song Rapper's Delight. And if you know the Sugar Hill label, it's very pretty. Like Candyland.
Yes, it is. Well,
because she wanted it to be that way for the country.
Well, keep in mind, Tyrone, for people outside of New York, let's say between 1973 and 1979, unless you was someone that was going down to New York, you were kind of unaware of this type of style of music. There might be some similarities. People say sometimes Parliament Funkadelic kind of had somewhat of an influence in that type of sound as well as disco. But outside of New York, throughout the country, nobody really knew this type of sound that was taking place.
Well, and I can tell, I went to Howard University.
Mm-hmm.
Howard was the home of Parliament Funkadelic.
Okay.
They loved the mothership. All right. And Go-Go was there, but they loved Parliament Funkadelic more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that, let me tell you, I went to college in 1975.
Right.
And Parliament Funkadelic was not in New York yet.
Mm-hmm.
Disco was in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I went to Howard, I was doing the hustle, dance-wise.
Okay.
All right. The Southern kids kind of put me on to Parliament Funkadelic and the Barcades. I knew of them. I heard of them, but I wasn't into it. None of the New York kids. So we got into it with the mothership. So Parliament Funkadelic, New Yorkers got on that a little bit later than everybody else. We got on the funk we had was, we had New York stuff. We had BT Express. We had Crown Heights Affair. We had Mandrill. Those were New York groups.
Mm-hmm. And
that's what we listened to, and then later on when Parliament Funkadelic just blew the roof off, we got on that. So yeah, I understand what you're saying about Parliament Funkadelic, but they weren't a part of hip hop at first. Part of the rap explosion.
Right.
MC explosion.
Well, it's kind of strange because as a kid growing up in the 70s, my babysitter and their family, they was into this Parliament Funkadelic, and they would go out of their way. They would love to go to their concerts. All of the music that they were playing was the bulk of Parliament Funkadelic and this type of sound. So it's kind of strange here in Connecticut. I don't know if we were more in the Parliament Funkadelic or not. Stan, do you remember Parliament Funkadelic, that funk group?
Yeah.
And that sound?
I do. I can't remember in terms of when it was popular relative to other stuff.
Yes.
But they were flash.
The only reason I know was when is because it's when I went to college.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I know when I went to college, and I know what was going on in New York when I
Right.
left. And I know what was going on in D.C. when I got there.
Right.
All right. And I was telling you, Jonathan, I worked in Hartford. My first job was at Aetna Life and Casualty up in Hartford.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to hear what they were into also. And you got New York. New York was different than everywhere.
Right.
New York just was its own self. Disco wasn't really crazy around the country like New York.
Mm-hmm.
People weren't doing the hustle like New York. The hustle, if you couldn't hustle when you went to a party, you damn near couldn't dance.
Okay. Right.
You know, the guy who could hustle the best got all the girls.
Right.
Right.
All right. They got, when you walked in and you could hustle, girls would run to you. I happen to be able to hustle.
Oh, okay. Give me fun. Okay.
Because, you know, I had a sister,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and she would practice with me all the time. You know, from high school, I'm teaching me how to hustle.
Yeah.
You know, so I got good at it, and that's what it was. You know, so everywhere else is a little different, and I want to tell you, when the groups came along, Rapper, Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash, The Furious Five, Crash Crew, all those Sugar Hill acts, when they went on the road to work, they caught it bad. They caught a brick. Why? Because the rest of the country was not used to seeing a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
So they would look at you on stage and say, "Oh, they're playing the record. They're lip syncing. Boo!"
Mm-hmm.
Because that's all they saw. And once they saw somebody on the stage with two turntables, they didn't know what mixing and scratching was. They booed the group.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Curtis Blow figured it out, and he created a band called Orange Crush. And Curtis Blow was the first rapper to really go out with a band.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can think of his song, "These Are the Breaks," you can hear the band.
Right.
Christmas rap and all that. That was Daydreaming. That was, you know, Curtis Blow is the one who took the first one to go out with a band and a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the rest of the country was not ready for rap, and in particular didn't like it. When they accepted it, was when the 80s came along. Roxanne Shante, Run DMC, that LL coming along, that era. That's when they accepted it. But when we were on the road, we used to have to teach the market what a DJ was. Marley Marl was our DJ. Mr. Magic was always our host. And he would say to the audience, "That's a DJ. His name is Marley Marl. Who knows what a DJ is?"
Right.
Early.
What?
Then he would say, "Marley, show him what a DJ does." And Marley would mix some records and scratch some records together, and the crowd would like it. So, and then Roxanne Shante was the main attraction, but you had to teach the audience what a DJ was. And as you went around the country, so they were not prepared for it.
Well, let's not. I mean, obviously, when you get to Roxanne Shante, Houdini, you're talking more my era, and I can definitely say it was very popular, and that's when the generation going into the 80s really started to gravitate to rap music. And like you say, before that gap period, let's say between 1978, 79, maybe to 82 or 83, it was still developing throughout the country.
Right. Up until Africa Bambaataa.
Planet Rock.
Planet Rock, right.
Very,
up until that, and there was a guy named T-Ski Valley who had, what's the name of the song? Something, The Beats. And Jimmy Spicer, that era was the beginning era of records. All right. There were guys, including me, there were people who I never thought there would be records, even when we were playing cassettes. I didn't think far enough ahead to think that record companies would want this music. You know, and then when they took the chance, or Sylvia Robinson took the chance, and then Tommy Boy, Tom Silverman in Profile followed suit. Enjoy was there too with Silverman. A lot of artists that were on Sugar Hill, they got from Enjoy. Enjoy, I want to tell you about Enjoy Records. Enjoy Records was owned by a guy named Bobby Robinson. Bobby Robinson had been in the music business for years. He was in a group, he was on Motown. He was in a group called the Contours. He managed Gladys Knight and the Pips, some other ones, all right? And he had a record store right next to the Apollo. So he would hear all this stuff in the street, because some people thought hip hop started in the Harlem because of Bobby Robinson. And Bobby Robinson was the first one to tell these kids, "I tell you what, bring me your cassettes and I'll pay you 50 cents for every one we sell out of my record store." And in the back of his record store, he basically had a pressing. He had a pressing machine. He could press these records. And but Bobby Robinson was like this. He wasn't a guy who would take you national, but he would build you up big enough, and he would sell your contract. I.e., Gladys Knight and the Pips. He sold them to Motown.
Mm-hmm.
All right. He's the real guy that discovered the Jackson 5 because he was next door to the Apollo.
Mm-hmm.
And he would always go to the Apollo on amateur night. And he called Gladys Knight, this is just a side story, and said, you need to check these kids out. And she saw them and she told Berry Gordy, and Berry Gordy rewrote the script and made it like Diana Ross discovered them, but in actuality, it was Bobby Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
So Bobby Robinson was a guy who was very instrumental in foreseeing this stuff on record. And he wasn't thinking national.
Mm-hmm.
He was just thinking, these kids in New York like it. If I put it on a record, I can sell some records out of my record.
Mm-hmm. Stan, do you have any questions you wanted to ask Tyrone related to this topic or anything else?
No, I'm listening and learning, and it's just fascinating. I love to hear the backstories of what actually happened, relative to what you're kind of like sold,
right.
For the glitz, but the nitty gritty, the behind the scenes, and I'm always fascinated by these interviews.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like it's like I can see it happening.
Yes, bringing back reminiscence of the days when I got into rap, actually about 40 years ago, really heavy, listening to it in 83.
Mm-hmm.
But Tyrone, when you get into the debate, or let's say just the clarifications of rhyming, because I think in the beginning stages of hip-hop, whatever you want to call it, it was more like a rhyming vocal tone. And
Absolutely.
Right. But then when Grandmaster Flash or Melly Mel came out with the message, it kind of changed not just the style and sound of it to say it's
well.
more.
Let's I'm going to teach you something else if you don't know.
Okay.
The message I was teasing Scorpio and Raheem of the Furious Five, telling them they were like Milli Vanilli, because none of them are on the message.
Oh, okay.
The message was written by a guy named Duke Booty. The first verse, the chorus, the hook, everything is his voice. Don't push me. God, that's him. All right. When Sylvia wanted the Flash and the Furious Five to do it, they said, we're not message rappers. We're party rappers. They didn't believe in it. So what she did to make the Furious Five record, she took a verse or Melly Mel from an old song that he did and put it on there. So it's almost like they're taking undue credit. Because they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, basically because of that song that they're not on. You know?
So, well, excuse me. So, Melly Mel didn't really have that many verses on that song, the message?
No, he had just the one.
Just the one, okay.
Yeah. Child is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind. That's him.
Okay.
But people piss it on the station because they just don't care. That's Duke Booty.
Right. And this guy, Dick, you said Dick, what?
Duke.
Duke
Booty was his name.
Okay, Duke Booty. He was not actually in the video of the message then. They had...
No.
Okay.
No, because Sylvia didn't do it. She called the Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5. But he wasn't on it. No. But he just died.
I heard about that too, yes.
And my problem with that was, you know, when Mel and them were talking about they don't get the credit they're supposed to get and nobody acknowledges them, I said, well, you don't acknowledge Duke Booty. You never ever say Duke Booty wrote this song, Duke Booty rhymed on it.
Right.
You don't even give a shit. You don't even say shout out to Duke Booty. Nothing. It was up to you. Nobody would know he existed.
Yeah.
So that come on. You gotta give credit where it's due.
Right,
Duke
right.
Booty had the idea, and that's their big. That made them. That made them. The other stuff would have kept them local.
Well, also again, the whole message of Duke Booty, that the consciousness was never done on rap up until that
Never.
point.
That record was the first record my mother liked.
Mm-hmm.
That was rap.
Right.
Adults liked that record. Everybody, because it touched something that everybody went through.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Everybody can understand the hard work and the stress and the going to work and trying to raise kids. Everybody can understand that.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, shortly, Run DMC kind of popularized rap with the image of the leather, the Adidas.
Well, that's Russell.
Russell Simmons.
Right. Well, before at this point in time, Russell Simmons, because there was a downtime. I want to say in hip hop, briefly. By this time, me and Mr. Magic and Marley are on a major station. We're on WBLS in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to understand this. To Magic, hip hop was his baby. He was determined to spread it. All right. Now, we're still the only one on radio, except we're on a major station. But if you can understand this, here we are at a station where they got us, the program director hired us. And they hired, and at the same time, it's crazy, I was doing news and sports. So I was the on-the-street young cub reporter. And I also covered sports because I was ambitious. I was all over the station. But if you can imagine being on a station fighting for a station that doesn't like you. WBLS, the most of the people there, the powers that be, did not like rap.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have an FCC license, we couldn't have been on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Because in those days, to be on the radio, on the microphone, you had to have an FCC license.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or you could work under someone. But the engineers, or whoever had an FCC license besides me, they would say things that just used to piss me off. Pardon my French.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But they would say things like, he might curse on the air. He might make me lose my license. Are you serious right now?
Mm-hmm.
Really? So I had the FCC license, so that made us be able to be on the radio.
Mm.
But yeah, it was hard. You talk about, I heard you earlier talking about it's the number one music in the world.
Right.
Think about that. Think about where I come from. Think about coming from playing cassettes to being the number one music in the world. And Mr. Magic doesn't get any credit. If it's not for him, it's none of that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well,
it's not for him. It's not, so we went through a lot. Then Then there came a time when me, Russell Simmons, and Andre Harrell were roommates. Because here we are, we're getting 15% of nothing. And I don't know if you ever heard a black woman's term. I can be bad by myself.
Mm-hmm. Something like that, yeah. I saw something like that. I've heard. But
so we had to get out.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Me and Russell had to get out.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to live with Andre. And this, understand this. This was a one-room studio, not a one-bedroom, one room with a couch, a pull-out couch, and a pull-out chair. The three of us stayed there.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the end of 83 going to 84, but then everything changed.
Right.
And it like exploded overnight. Just boom, just like the persistence. Magic had this thing he just said at the end of his show, persistence overcomes resistance. And we overcame because we were persistent. And you know what? At the time, being young, when you're young, you could be aggressive and not care about the status quo. We never thought we weren't the best doing it.
Mm-hmm.
There was never time between me, Russell, Andre, and Mr. Magic that we thought, oh man, we got a struggle. We always thought we were the best.
Right.
Even when we were struggling. we thought that nobody else could touch us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that ego made us just keep moving and not even pay anybody else attention. Mm-hmm. We thought it was their loss. If they don't know about this hip hop, it's their loss. And you know, so then Joey was Russell's little brother from Run DMC, Simmons.
Joseph Simmons, right.
Now, Joey used to also be with us at the Rap Attack. We used to have what we called the Juice Mobile, because Magic was known as Sir Juice. So we had a band called the Juice Mobile. And Joey used to ride around with us. We used to call him at that time the son of Curtis Blow.
I heard about that too, yes.
Or DJ Run. And the son of Curtis Blow used to ride around with us. And then Russell got an opportunity through Corey Roberts to make a record for his brother. DMC wasn't supposed to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
It was just supposed to be Run, not DMC.
Not DMC.
All right, but somehow DMC ended up at the studio and they did it together, which is the best thing they could have ever done. Run DMC was the first hip hop superstar.
Mm-hmm.
They were superstars. They were and we started doing arenas. Now I'm sure you've heard of the Chitlin Circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Old soul groups, they did the Chitlin Circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, rappers did the skating rink circuit.
All right.
That's what we did, skating rinks.
Mm-hmm.
All over, everywhere we went was a skating rink. Occasionally, you got some place like the Apollo or the Howard Theater in Washington. Occasionally, you got a theater. But for the most part, we did skating rinks.
Mm-hmm.
A guy from Atlanta named Ricky Walker. Have you heard of the Universal Circus?
Universal Circus?
Mm-hmm. Universal Circus.
So, well, you heard of it, Stan, so like you agree. I haven't heard of it,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've heard of it?
Yes.
Okay, well, the guy who owns the Universal Circus, he was the first guy to take hip-hop to major venues. There was a guy named Ricky Walker from Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
He came up and he came to the radio station. And he said he could take Houdini, Run DMC, and Curtis Blow to 20,000 seaters. Mind you, remember, we're only doing skating rinks.
Mm-hmm.
Or big clubs, maybe 2,000, 3,000 people, maybe. So he comes with this idea and he sells it to us. So I can take you to all the major arenas. And he called it the Fresh Fest. And he took the Fresh Fest out, and it started out with Curtis Blow, Houdini, Run DMC, and the Fat Boys.
The Fat Boy. I knew you were going to say the Fat Boys.
Fat Boys.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, then they added Shantae. And as we would go to different parts of the country, we'd pick up local artists, you know. And Jermaine Dupri was on it too. Jermaine Dupri was a dancer, a little kid, like 10 years old, dancing.
He was the dancer with Houdini because he was in the video. The Freaks Come Out at Night, in that video.
Yeah, no, he wasn't a dancer with Houdini. He just did that for that video.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't
really a dancer.
He was Michael Malden was the stage manager.
Mm-hmm.
Jermaine Dupri was his son, and he pitched Ricky let his son dance on the show.
Right. Excuse me, Tyrone. Actually, you know who were the dancers from Houdini was actually what's the
Cliff
group?
in them.
Say that again.
Cliff. Well, that started. No, listen. UTFO.
That's what I was going to say. UTFO was part of the
Mr.
dancers.
Magic had a contest. All right. At Radio City Music Hall, him and Charles Stetler. At Radio City Music Hall, Charles Stetler was able to talk them to Badger Radio City Music Hall until they did it. And the Mr. Magic Rap Attack contest. The first prize for the rapper was a record deal, and the first prize for the dancer was to be able to dance with Houdini.
Mm-hmm.
UTFO won the dance portion. Fat Boys won the rap portion.
Mm.
So the Fat Boys, they weren't even called the Fat Boys. They were called the Disco 3.
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
And after the Disco 3, all right, Charles Stetler saw how heavy they were. You know, being the type of guy he was, he created the Fat Boys. He also took a group from Connecticut and called them the Skinny Boys.
I heard of them too, the Skinny
All right,
Boys.
they're from Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So he was that he took the Fat Boys to levels that the Disco 3 would have never made. They didn't want to change their name. As you can understand, they did not want to be the Fat Boys.
Right. Well, I tell you, in that era, that 83, 84, 85, 86 era, it was either in Connecticut and Hartford area, you either you loved them all, but if you had one favorite, it was either the Run DMC, Houdini, or the Fat Boys, and maybe Curtis Blow too to some degree.
Curtis Blow, yeah, those they were the biggest.
The biggest ones.
They were the biggest. They were the biggest. They were the ones on the Fresh Fest.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and at that time, Curtis Blow was the king.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Curtis Blow was the king. He was it. He made the song of "I Rule the World." He was, and Curtis Blow is the only rapper I saw at that time get away with singing a song, and everybody loved that song.
Right.
The song was called "Daydream," and "Daydream" was a big record, and then people loved that record, and nobody said anything about, hip hop was really peculiar about getting out of the genre, but nobody said anything about that. Mm-hmm. Girls loved it.
Well, I tell you, Tyrone, I mean, your record label, Cold Chillin Records, some people say, and it could be debated, that 87 to 89 period was the best sound in hip hop history. If you really, and some people even say 1988 was really the best year of hip hop music.
Well, you know what? Listen, by the time Roxanne, I want, before I get to that, I want to tell you about Roxanne Shante and how she came about. We left WBLS is August of 1984.
Mm-hmm.
The Rap Attack is getting 35 shares. That is huge. And for you to understand how big it was, I'm sure you've heard of Don Imus, Howard Stern.
Yes.
If any one of them get a 10 share, they have a big party. Magic was getting 35. So we go in August to renegotiate. It's time to renegotiate. So we hire an attorney, Bill Kraslovsky, big time attorney, supposedly. When we get to the station, me, Magic, and Marley, we're late, as we tended to be back then. We're late for the meeting. And we walk in, our attorney has a big smile on his face. So we know something's good. And the general manager says, fellas, we got great news for you. Magic, we're going to put you on every day. And Ty, you know you want to do news, so we're going to give you a news show in the AM, and you can cover sports. You cover sports. Marley, we're going to put you on every day at noon with a woman we have, Mary Thomas, the noonday mix with Marley. But no more hip hop. We look, no more hip hop. Magic says, no more hip hop. What about the Fat Boys? What about Run? What about Kurt? Nah, the majors don't know what to make of this hip hop thing. They can't sell it. They don't know how to sell it. Magic is at this time, Magic is the biggest thing in hip hop. Magic, if you stop playing it, kids will think it's over and they won't want it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, we quit.
Oh.
The three of us, remember again, we're young. We walk out because in our minds, they don't know, they're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So we leave, we go back to WHBI. But mind you, they don't dislike us. By this time, they like us as people. So they call them my grandmother, Magic's wife. They're losing their minds. This is the opportunity of a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they want to throw it all away for this hip hop? And you get home, my grandmother's calling me, my girl is on my neck. Are you stupid? And that's what it was, and Marley's mother, his sisters, everybody went crazy.
Right.
We went through with it. We went back to HBI, and quickly, we had no money. Quickly. And because now, I will say this, the $50 an hour, as a matter of fact, by this time, it's $75 an hour. But that's okay because the independents, They paid for us to be on the radio. Sugar Hill, Profile, Tommy Boy, Select. They paid the on-air time. We were on 10 hours, so they paid that $750 a week. So we have to worry about that. But that wasn't paying us. And it was you know, I didn't have time. There wasn't a longer period of time yet for me to get sponsors. So we were really struggling. UTFO comes to us with a song called Hanging Out. It's singing. On the B side is a song called Roxanne.
Right.
Magic says, this Hanging Out, I don't like that. This Roxanne record is it. No, Magic, no. They're not playing rap on the radio no more. You gotta be singing. Needless to say, Magic plays Roxanne, it blows up. So they know we're starving. They promise us a free show where we can make money before Christmas. Ty, just go find the venue and get the date, and we'll do it. This is them and their manager. His manager's name was Steve Salem. He has since passed on. I get the spot called Broadway International, the date. I call the manager, and I'll never forget it. He said, we don't have to do a show for you anymore. Kiss just added our record. It was like somebody shot me in the heart.
You mean Kiss radio station when you say Kiss?
Station.
Yes, okay.
Kiss FM.
Kiss FM.
Yes. Kiss FM just added our record. I'm like, oh my God. So I go to the station that night. Magic is and Marley are waiting, find out all the particulars, and they said they're not doing it. What? Oh God. So we take Marley home. Now mind you, we're on the air from 2 to 4. We take Marley home. He lived in Queensbridge Projects. We take him home. We're in front of his building talking about it. How the hell can UTFO do this? All of a sudden, there's a little girl standing there. And she says, out of her mouth, why don't y'all let me make a tape dissing them?
Yeah.
And I look at her, I say, first of all, how old are you? And what are you doing outside at 4 in the morning? It's going on 5 now. And my head mind is saying, go away, little girl. We got bigger problems. The next night, Marley Marl comes to the station. He says, Ty, remember that little girl who was out there? Check this out. And he puts the cassette in. And he goes, well, my name is Roxanne. Now, don't you know, I just a cold rocker party when I do the show. And she just was, wow. And we played that. And the city went crazy. At the same time, there was a label called Pop Art Records in Philadelphia. Dana Goodman and his brother Lawrence owned it. Dana got us a job in Philly at WDAS. All right, so we go there. We had WDAS, and we put the cassette in. And Dana comes to the station and says, wow, kids were going crazy for that record you played. The Roxanne one? Whose record is that? So I said, well, it's not a record. It's just a cassette we did. He said, what? Nobody has that? I said, nobody has that. He asked, could they take the air check? Do you know that they pressed the air check? It's because it starts out, we used to have what we call the world premiere. Whenever we play the new record, we go a world premiere. So Roxanne's Revenge starts out like that, a world premiere. And it ends with Magic's voice going, oh my goodness. Because he said, oh my goodness, UTFO better watch out.
Yeah.
Now they didn't care about a lawsuit or nothing. They put it out, didn't know the girl, nothing.
Well.
So now they come to New York. They want, well, we got to talk, because my thing was, I don't even know her mother, you know. We're going to meet her mother. Just for her mother. Now, this is a time of my life, really. See, when the general manager of VLS offered me the news spot, he knew where my heart was. I wanted to be a journalist. I didn't want to be an anchor person because I wanted to write my own words, read my own words. Anchor people read somebody else's words. My dream was to be like a war correspondent. So it's like, at the time, I'm still thinking that. But Shantae's mother said, because she's heard me on her station, WLIB, which at the time is Black News and Information. So she has a special feeling about me. She says the only way my daughter can do it is if Tyrone manages her. That put me in as her manager. Because I had managed the Fearless 4 and the 417 before, which was they blew my mind. Never manage a group. Warning, never manage a group.
Tyrone, we're kind of running low on time.
I'm sorry.
I do want to ask a few more questions. Obviously, when you get into Roxanne Shante, we start this new style of the battles. You know, Roxanne coming back against UTFO. I think Cold Chillin Records with MC Shan, The Bridge, and then you get into KRS-One, The Bridge is Over. That kind of was like a different transitionary period for the sound and the style of hip hop. Yeah. But your record label, again, Cold Chillin Records, had a big influence during that late 80s period.
We had a sound, like you said. We had Marley Marl. That was the Marley sound.
Marl, right.
That was the Marley sound, you know. We had an influence. I started my label in 87. Okay. Quickly, the first label was called Bridge Records. We started. Because we didn't know anything about a record label. I don't know what to do or anything. But it got to a point where we said, you know what? Let's start our own label. Why are we signing everybody to somebody else? So Bridge Records, we got robbed. Distributors took advantage of us, everybody. We were overpaying for vinyl. You know, because you had to pay for the vinyl, you had to pay for the lines, you had to pay for the labels, you had to pay for the artwork. We were overpaying. But you know what? Bridge Records taught us what to do and what, more importantly, what not to do.
Right.
All right. So by the time we started Cold Chillin, we were ready. I was ready, we were ready. And we signed Cool G Rap. We signed Big Daddy Kane. We signed Biz Markie. But we were all, I was already managing them before I had the label. Because Shan brought in Biz, and Biz brought in TJ Swan, and then Kane came, and then me and Marley found G-Rap. So it was all coming together. So when I started the label, boom, they were on the label.
Right.
And they were so hot and so good. Understand this, they changed the sound of hip hop. My artists changed not just the sound, the rhyming delivery.
Yes.
All right, it was different than Run DMC or Melly Mel or Houdini. The delivery was different. You know, it was more in depth. It was more consciousness. It was more, you know, more serious.
Right.
You know, and yes, we had to, and our whole mentality was battle.
Battle, yeah.
You know, all my artists basically talked about how good they were, how bad you were. You know, but that spawned, you know, the Dougie Fresh was what I call cross-generational. Because he was kind of with that Furious 5 era.
Right.
But without a record, Dougie Fresh was just Dougie. You know, he was just good. Entertainment.
Well, also with Dougie Fresh, the human beatbox. I mean, that he brought to the table.
Right. He was the first one to do the human beatbox, and that's what did it, you know. And Mr. Magic named him the world's greatest entertainer. All right, and which is what Magic did. They named people a lot of things. You know, he's called Dougie the world's greatest entertainer. But Dougie crossed the generational, and generations of hip hop changed quickly. You know, you went from Flash and them and Kurt and them. Houdini was a cross generation.
Cross generation, right? Houdini.
Because Houdini was kind of with Flash and them and Spoonie, but they also were with Run DMC and Roxanne Shante because of their producer, Larry Smith. Larry Smith is not talked about enough. He was so great. Larry Smith produced Run DMC and Houdini.
Right.
And think of how different their sounds were. Larry Smith was unbelievable. But yeah, so Cold Chillin, you know, was a staple. Cold Chillin had the rappers rap.
Right.
Cold Chillin had the rappers all the other rappers looked up to.
Mm.
You know,
Well,
everybody wanted to be on Cold Chillin.
right. Tell you what I'm gonna do, because of time constraints. I might consider doing a trilogy of just maybe 3 different levels of hip hop, because I really didn't get a chance to get into the finance and the money, and I may save that for the next segment, because you kind of
want to do that. I'm absolutely willing. I'm enjoying this.
Right. But again, it was our pleasure, man. You brought a lot of historical information to hip hop. Also, clarification of the reality of hip hop and the role that you played. And before we end this particular segment, if there's any last words you would like to leave the audience, feel free to do so.
Well, yeah, sure. Hip hop was my life. Hip hop, so they used to have a thing on Saturday Night Live when the guy would say, baseball has been very, very good to me. Hip hop has been very, very good to me. Took me around the world, earned me a lot of money, taught me things, showed me things I thought I would never see, things I didn't even think about. The growth of it signals the growth of me. All right, it's like a child, and I was like a child, a young person who grew with it. And with the corporate world, I was at Warner Brothers, at Sony. It was a whole different ball game for me. I got to be close with people because of radio. I got to meet Betty Shabazz and Hal Jackson and Frankie Crocker, and just so many different people that I would never have met. And dealt with had it not been for hip hop.
Well, definitely, man. I mean, obviously, it was a pleasure. I mean, Kevin Harewood, again, is a lifesaver, because I was looking at a different type of guest and a different type of topic, and I was running out of time. And then I just said I wanted to do something about hip-hop, and I had reached out to him, and he gave a strong referral to yourself. And clearly, you can't go wrong with someone who was a big part of the hip-hop from the beginning stages towards what the transitionary period of the late 80s. In particular, but then other particular areas as well. So again, I mean, this is going to most likely be a trilogy, a few more shows of hip hop, and again, I really appreciate your willingness to be available under short notice, and wish you best of the luck with your health conditions too, as well.
Absolutely, thank you.
Absolutely, thanks so much for the history lesson. I can't wait till parts 2 and 3, because this is
the trilogy.
Yeah, dynamite. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, take care.
All right, take care now.
All right, bye.
Fabulous.
Yeah, more of a listening mode today, which is something different from me. I usually like to ask a lot of questions, but definitely more of the listening mode this morning. And like I say, with the hip hop era, it brings back some memories. Because when I was listening to hip hop, you only had really 2 stations in this area, WESU in Middletown and WRTC and Trinity College, Hartford. I don't know if you knew of any other radio stations, because KND and QTQ and other stations really didn't play rap or hip hop in that early
RTC
80s.
used to be with the Thought Power crew and
right.
Yep.
Our RTC was big, and if you was fortunate or had the strong signal TCC up in Springfield, you could listen. They had a very hip hop sound there too. But that's how I started listening to hip hop. Like he mentioned, you had the cassette player, or you had a record player, you had a cassette, and then you would just tape off of the radio.
Well, for me, hip hop was Lorna's Corner.
Lorna's Corner, okay. Well, she brought the video style.
Right, all of the videos and everything, so.
Yeah, Lorna was dynamite with the videos. I mean, interviewing people like LL Cool J and other people. So she kind of brought the video aspect of the hip hop. But before the video, like I'm saying, you had to go through the audio phase. And it's like he mentioned, it's just strange. I didn't get a chance to get into how it changed with the finance, and I really want to get into that part. But like I said, I can save that for another segment. But do you remember hip hop when you was in Pennsylvania back in the 70s? Because you didn't hear it on radio.
No, I was here by then. I was here. I came to Hartford in 1979.
Well, that's when it started to become more of a national figure with the Sugar Hill Gang and that song they did. But there was still a slow period, even from 79 up until about 82, 83. Because you just didn't hear it that much on different radio stations, you know.
Well, hold that thought. Folks, stick and stay, and we will be right back. It's Morning Talk. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere.
Are you ready? Coming Friday, May 5th, 2023 at 7 p.m. is the Season 1 finale of Hartford's Got Talent at the famous Bushnell Theater in Hartford, Connecticut. Talent of all ages compete for $15,000 in cash prizes and awards. Don't miss it. Hartford's Got Talent, Friday, May 5th at the Bushnell in Hartford, Connecticut. Hartford's Got Talent, showcasing talent and connecting community. For more information, visit www.hartfordsgottalent.org.
How do you define evil? Is evil the pedophile school administrator or taxation without representation? Is it the gatekeeping community leaders who sell out the very people they were elected to fight for? Or is evil the politician that puts out lies and takes in cash? However you may classify evil, having to choose the lesser of two evils still leaves you with evil. Nowhere does this rule apply more than during an election for mayor. Choosing a candidate who is the lesser of two evils still leaves you with evil. No wonder so many people don't vote. It's time for the constituents to flip the script and vote for a mayor you can trust. My name is Jason McCauley. I am an independent thinker, and I approve this message. I'm asking you for your vote on Tuesday, September the 12th, 2023, in the Democratic Party primary election for mayor for the city of Hartford. I, like you, am an independent thinker. So let's sit down and talk about my path to victory and why my 5-point plan for Hartford will work. Stop listening to the uninformed evil interests that tell you I can't win. For more information, visit McCauleyformayor.com. Have the courage to vote your conscience. Vote for the name you trust and know. Vote McCauley for mayor.
Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right. Welcome back. Morning Talk live from the greatest city on earth, Hartford, Connecticut. New England's rising star. They got a new. I think they got a new thing now.
What's that?
Love Hartford. Love Hartford. I think that's the new New England's rising star. Then it was Hartford has it, and then it finally now it's Love Hartford. And they switch these things around.
Well, you know, it used to be I Love New York way back.
I Love New York. That's
days.
still a brand that sticks with New York. They didn't change every 4 years, every 3 years.
Yeah, but it was more heavily commercialized when it first got started.
Of course, but I mean, the legacy of it is still around. I love New York.
Oh yeah, that song. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Commercial songs. It was real popular.
Decades later.
Exactly.
Decades.
Mm-hmm. Well, anything new that you're working on with your campaign?
Who, me?
Yeah. Anything in particular that stands out?
Big announcement, or not announcement. Kickoff is Friday, 11:45. The campaign kickoff.
That's a press conference?
Big press conference in front of City Hall, 550 Main Street, 11:45. Campaign kickoff. The official mobile campaign office will be there, and we got all kinds of stuff getting ready to happen. This is the final week of kind of chill space for the next 4 years.
All right.
Not a day off for the next 4 years, you know.
Well, you're gonna be kind of busy then, obviously.
We will be very,
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 very busy.
very, very, very busy, non-stop busy from now until September the 12th when the primary happens, and then from September the 12th for the next 4 years. Non-stop. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You got to get your head in that game. So once your head is in there, you good to go.
Oh, you've been through this before, so
yes,
this is nothing new for
you. This is, you got to, the only thing different about this is we know exactly what to expect, and you got to, you just got to gird your loins and jump. Yeah.
Well, again, your whole platform, I mean, you have your 5 pinpoint platform.
5-point plan, yep.
But again, the youth is your number one.
Youth is number one.
And nothing, you don't think is going to change that going from now to the election?
No. It was good then. It's good now. We don't change up because of some new flavor of the month. The fix is still the fix. Like if you got a flat tire on the highway, you gotta change the tire. We don't need something different than the fix. We need the fix.
The fix.
Right.
Well, again, I mean, obviously you have your strategy in place. I guess it's going to dwindle down a little bit between now and September toward, the primary and the Democratic nomination period.
That'll be in July.
July, okay. And we just have to wait and see how things are going to turn out. Obviously, debates are happening.
There'll be debates. There's a debate coming up this Thursday at Colin Bennett Building. The Upper Albany Merchants Association will be having a candidates forum for all 8 of the candidates should be there.
Right.
And of course, today is filing day. People will be putting their files in terms of how much money they've raised. And that'll be a big tell. Of course, we're just starting out, so our filing is going to be
on the lower side.
Right. Our official kickoff date is this coming Friday. But Arunan Arulampalum.
I heard
right now. It looks like he's got 225,000.
Yeah.
First quarter.
We didn't see that
out the gate.
Yeah.
No, plenty of people saw that.
Oh, he pretty so. Well, maybe I'm on the outside. I don't know the whole ins and outs.
Oh yeah. He had to have a strong showing. He needs a strong showing. John Funfair needs a strong showing, and Eric needs a strong showing.
Well, Eric got the endorsement of some group.
He got the endorsement of the Hartford Progressive Democratic Women's Club.
Okay.
Right.
Does that always make a difference just to get any endorsement? Or
any endorsement is a good endorsement.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that.
All right.
Yes.
Well, work on your strategy.
That was expected. For them not to endorse Eric would have been scandalous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how things turn out. I mean,
to me, that's not news. It'd have been news if they'd had endorsed someone else. That's like my kids endorsing me.
Yeah, you expect that.
We would expect that. They're my children.
Yeah. I guess there's going to be other big endorsements coming up.
Oh yeah.
And see.
Big ones. The unions will come and start endorsing people. Police, teachers.
The Hartford Current.
Public Works. I don't know if the Current is going to endorse anybody.
Oh.
I don't know. The Current had made a statement some time back that they weren't going to endorse governor. I think they were staying out of governor and presidential and going to get more involved in local elections. So I don't know whether that meant that they were. I don't know. I don't know. But they had made a statement some time ago about endorsing. But if the Current does endorse a candidate, that will be the Current's endorsement is highly sought after and it's a big one.
A big one, exactly.
It's a big one.
You definitely want to target the Hartford Current for the endorsement.
Well, they'll interview the way the Hartford Current does in the past. They'll bring you before they have a special editorial board that does that, and it's separate from the news side. And they'll ask questions and they'll mix it up, and then they come out with who they think would be best given the circumstances and who's running. They do that they have done it in the past for mayor, for city council. and other offices that are up.
Well, you had a front page cover of the Hartford Courant the last time you ran for election, but that didn't mean that they had endorsed you.
No.
But you were on the front page. You had the whole spread, so that's pretty big too to be.
That is big. It was Sunday Current. Too.
Sunday Current on top of that.
Yeah, statewide.
But the endorsement obviously is much different.
The endorsement is much different. Yeah.
Right.
Right. But the incumbent is not in the race.
Right.
Which changes everything. No one was going to beat Luke. Mm-hmm. Unbeatable.
Yeah. So the best thing for someone to win is for him not to run.
The only way anyone can win is for him not to run.
Is not to run.
Very powerful and very powerful is the incumbent, and he's a good he's a skilled politician. So there's very little, and he can raise lots of money.
Exactly.
That's the key. The money. $1 million man is hard to beat.
And then those commercials when you can come on WFSB Channel 3, they carry.
Well, $1 million you can put commercials on major media.
Exactly.
And blanket everyone with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I say, you come up with your strategy. Like I said, if you need some assistance in the media department, I don't know about Channel 3. That's big. Like you said, you got to have the money even to back that up. So you call and say, could you have candidate on? You got to pay for it. So that's going to
No.
Well, I mean, the
candidates don't pay to be on the major networks. Those are done as public services and news and information. So they will interview.
No, I mean the TV commercials.
Oh! You buy those?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
At top market rate.
Yes.
There's no cut discount rate.
But that's what Mayor Bronin had going for him 4 years ago.
We had money
to pay. They come on WFSB Channel 3 commercials.
Channel 30, Fox 61, Downstate, Channel 8, Channel 12. I mean, way downstate.
Yeah, and no people can't even vote up here. So, I mean, I don't even know why he was targeting that area, but that just proves to show you how much revenue stream he had.
Right, but people downstate know people in Hartford. And Hartford's the state capital. So, the more people that are talking about you, the better. Mm-hmm. And that shows your capacity to do reaching out beyond Hartford, because Hartford is, for the most part, there's a lot of influence from people who are not Hartford centric.
Right.
And so because so many outside forces have influence into what actually happens in Hartford, your capacity to touch those people, as is demonstrated by their willingness to support you financially, becomes an interesting and important part of the mix for political people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think at some point, man, people just want to see some action. I mean, people want to see things in place. I mean, some people are turned on or turned off by politics. Some people say
rightly so.
It's either you love it or you just despise it.
Most people despise it.
Right.
Because they find politicians to be untrustworthy and less than truthful. Mm-hmm. Right.
But see, you're kind of the opposite. You're very honest and truthful, which is kind of rare for a politician.
Yeah, because that means you can't be relied on to lie.
Mm-hmm.
Take one for the team.
Well, the thing about politicians, I mean, the whole political thing is you got to tell people what they want to hear. That's what I always hear.
No, you don't have to tell people what they want to hear. That's a choice. That's a conscious decision that the person with the mouth makes when they open it and stuff comes out of it. They make a conscious decision to be less than truthful.
Well, when I say that,
lie.
I mean they're trying to get your vote, so they have to tell you what you want to hear in order to get your vote.
I still challenge that notion. You be honest with people, because telling somebody what they want to hear doesn't mean that's what they're going to get. And so you become duplicitous. I can't tell you you're going to get the job, and then tell someone else they're going to get the job, and there's only one job. So I'm telling both of you what you want to hear. So that means somewhere down the line, I'm going to have to lie to one of you. I know I promised you the job, and I really wanted you to have that job. But, by the time it got down to HR, they had they're the ones that made the final decision. I was championing you because I thought you were going to be the best guy for the job. Then you tell what I said to the other guy. The other guy comes to me and says, I didn't say anything like that to him. Oh no. He missed the mark by a wide margin. I didn't even put his name in. You had the job right. I'm the one that gave you the job, not HR. That's lying.
Right, but I'm saying the whole political structure is politicians to tell people, the residents, well, I have a lot of opportunities to bring jobs, better schooling, better services to your community, public safety. I'm going to attack crime.
Yeah.
So they tell you all of these things to give you this belief that, okay, this is the person that I need to vote for because they're going to fill my interests. And if they tell you, like you say, the truth, I'm going to go out here and try to do the best I can, but I can't make any guarantees. Sometimes the voters don't buy into that. Well, they want to hear you're going to do this, you're going to do that, instead of telling the truth about what you're going to try to do.
I would agree with you on that point too. But the problem is that the politicians shouldn't. If your solution to the problem is, well, I'm going to try to do the best I can do, then you're not going to win.
You're not going to win, right?
You shouldn't win.
Okay.
Because we don't need someone to try to do the best that they're doing. The person in there right now is doing that. So what bells and whistles are on the edges of your special coat that anyone should try to put some faith in your ability to try to do the best that you can do?
Right.
So there's nothing that really separates you from the person that's trying right now and not doing so well, because there are bigger forces at play than their willingness or unwillingness to try. So what is your plan? See, a lot of people don't have a plan. So what is your plan for the fix? What are you proposing that we do? And is it different than what's being done? What thought has gone into it? And that takes time. It takes time. It takes some ingenuity or some creativity or some thought, research, touching people that are in the city, hearing what their problems are to come up with solutions. And so because people don't come up with solutions, they tell you the things you want to hear. So back to your broader point, the one person is telling you, we're going to attack crime. I can bring crime down by 10%. Education, we're going to raise education. And economic development is going to be a main thrust of our campaign. We're going to bring jobs. And then the other person that says, well, I don't really have the power to bring jobs, so I'm going to do the best I can to make this an atmosphere where folk can come.
Yeah.
Both of those are problematic because one is just,
Well, I think what should happen is the people in the city needs to come up with an agenda. And I would say right now, housing is one of your major problems. Just the cost of rental housing, ownership, if you're going to go in that direction. Do people really want to become homeowners in the city of Hartford? I know there's been some attempts to try to increase the home ownership rate in Hartford. The cost of the rental market, is it really worth to have to pay what some of these apartment complexes are charging? So I think the housing issue, because even if you have a job or you're going to school or you're trying to start a businesses, if you don't really have stabilized housing, it's going to affect your everyday life.
But see, I think that's a very worthwhile discussion, because when you talk about what is stabilized housing and what is the available housing stock in Hartford that is available for people to purchase, and of the available housing stock, are the people that are in need of it, do they have the capacity to go out and purchase? Right. So I think there's a difference between people owning homes that want to own homes in Hartford and people who need a place to live.
Right. Two differences, yeah.
Two different things. Because needing a place to live does not automatically dictate that you go out and buy a house.
Well, when I say need a place to live, either you rent or you buy. So it's really those two options. I mean, somebody has to own the house anyway, whether you have an apartment complex, maybe there's a landlord or a management agency that owns the building, so you're renting, or you single individually just buy a home. You can rent to buy as well, too. So that's another third option.
Right, but you can't rent to buy or buy if there isn't something available. So if we have more people who need housing and there isn't any affordable places for them to stay that they can afford, that creates a problem.
Well, see,
there's something in the paper this morning in the Current about the fact that there's down in Berlin, the zoning and planning and zoning commission voted down these 2 units to increase apartments. They're not there. They're gone. They don't want them there, so they voted them down. So if you have places that refuse to build, then people can't move there. Hartford there's not a lot of empty houses waiting for folk to just snap up.
Well, the thing in Hartford, you're running out of space. You just don't have enough space.
Right. So at some point, you oversaturate the need exceeds the availability.
I agree with that.
And that's a different conversation and a different problem than whether or not people can afford. Because scarcity of an item with overwhelming demand automatically pushes the price of the item up.
Yeah, and see, the thing about it is, at some point I really need, like you mentioned in the past, get a housing expert on to really go in depth with this, but really get someone that has a solution. I mean, I tried to reach out to a developer, but he's just not ready to come on right now. He wants to
Why
wait.
don't we get somebody from I know who you can get. There's a whole housing coalition of folks here in Connecticut and in Hartford who can come and talk about that. It is a serious problem.
Yeah. But see, what keeps happening is you get into the Hartford Housing Authority when you get the market rate and affordable rate. So let's say you do have available housing that exists. It's either market rate sometime or affordable rate. You get into the affordable rate market, now you got a long waiting list. Obviously, 2,000 people would much rather be on the waiting list for an $800 a month subsidized apartment or affordable rate apartment than be on the list for a $1,700 a month market rate apartment.
Of course, Jonathan, because the person.
I mean, that's common sense, obviously.
Yeah, that's common sense because if folk could choose between the $800 subsidized housing, that's the same as the $1,700 a month unsubsidized housing,
right?
Of course, they would rather be on the waiting list. But the issue isn't one of being on a waiting list. The issue is one that you need a place to live.
You need a place to live, but you can't afford to live in the market rate, and the market rate is available, but they can't afford to live in the market rate.
So if we've got 2,000 units, they're just sitting around waiting for someone to move in. Is what you're saying sounds like that. I don't believe that's the case, but the way you're making it sound is that there's 2,000 empty units.
No, that's not
waiting for people to move in, but they can't afford them. So they're on the waiting list for the ones that are going to be subsidized.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying is you have the subsidized affordable rate apartments that there's no vacancy. So what happens is they ends up putting you on a waiting list. Okay, you need a place to live, like you mentioned, but there's no availability for the affordable rate apartment. So the best thing we can do is put you on a waiting list. I think what they should do, and there's a few developments that's getting out of this market rate, affordable rate, you just have one set price for an apartment. So
there is one set price for the apartment, but the people can't afford the one set price. So now we have to subsidize it.
The market rate, they can't afford the market rate, so now they have to subsidize.
So your suggestion would be to lower the rates?
Well, that's what's happened. There's one place that has lowered the rates. Let's say $1,100 a month,
right,
for working class, not everybody, and then there's still an income.
So let's say that we had rent control, and the price was flat all the way across the board, $1,100 a month. Do you think that the people who could afford $2,000 a month would be able to move into the $1,100 a month
Well,
apartment?
what happened is even with the set aside, you have I guess they call it income restrictions. You can't make above a certain amount. So even if let's say you have $1,100 a month apartment, if you make over a certain amount of money, because someone that can afford a $2,000 a month apartment has most likely more money that he can afford to pay for a $2,000 apartment. So he wouldn't be eligible for the $1,100 a month.
Right, but this is a vicious circle. But the person that can't afford that, who is eligible for the rent assistance, can't get in because there aren't any units.
Units, yes.
Right. So the problem is one that's the cost is almost a moot point. The units aren't there.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, that's my point. Housing is a bigger problem. I think housing is much of a bigger challenge or problem than the economy. I think, and although the economy may be changing here and there, they may say that you have less jobs or more jobs, whatever. The housing seems to be the biggest one of the, well, inflation too, but that's
we've got
connected.
You got inflation, but as it pertains to housing, the dirty truth is, if there isn't no space in the inn, you're going to have to sleep somewhere
Someplace, right.
else. So, yeah, there's a big problem. If everyone wants to be in Hartford, there are other places.
Well, this is a
live.
this is a national problem. I mean, I just mentioned Hartford because I'm saying if a candidate is going to be running for public office as a mayor, I would want to put housing as the top of the agenda. You say it's the youth. I can't debate you with your belief about the youth.
I think that the youth is at the top of the agenda. Housing is a very important issue. It's one that needs to be addressed. I think there are multiple ways to approach this. But one thing is for certain, where there is no house, I don't know who's going to build it. The state can't build houses. The state has determined that it's better to spend its money downtown converting old office space into houses at millions of dollars a clip.
Yeah.
So as long as the state has decided to subsidize housing downtown that people can buy in at $2,200 a month, the little guys on the outside looking in. These are decisions made by politicians elected to office.
But let me even go back. I guess I'm wrong to some degree. And you may be wrong too. There is housing available, but do everybody want to live in a bad street, a bad environment, a bad housing structure? So let's say there is a house on Baltimore Street in a high crime, high drug infested area that may or rent it for $700 a month. There's a reason why the place is available and it's renting for $700 a month. There's some problems around that particular place. So I can't say that there's no place available.
There's no place available that somebody wants to live. Exactly. I don't want to go on a bus. I want first class flight from limousine.
Well,
I mean,
No, I would say just a safe, decent place. I mean, obviously it's not. I'm not saying every place is going to be luxury, but obviously you don't want to have major issues of people blocking traffic. You can't get into your driveway. You may have to park on the street.
So this would seem to me to be an issue of how do we develop community.
That's the biggest
and
solution,
at the top
right.
of developing community, in my opinion, never to be a humble opinion, are our youth. And the youth is like a keystone in a bridge. The bridge needs every single stone.
It does.
The keystone is very important, but you remove one stone, the whole bridge collapses.
Well, see,
so I think the youth are the keystone. That doesn't mean it's the only thing we have, because this keystone won't stand on its own. All 5 points of my plan work. They all work concurrently, all at the same time, with a focus on all. But you can only talk about one thing at a time. So we start with the youth in our conversation and our explanation. Yeah. It's not the only thing we're rolling out. It's not the only thing we're focusing on. We're focusing on 5 things.
Right.
And all 5 of these areas have to work. So ultimately, you want economic and community development. Community development is also human development, just like you have youth development, so that you can attack things like crime on the street, attack things like the degradation of the community. And if people have jobs, then they don't have to turn to the underground economy. You don't have to have a crime-infested community. You have a community that is self-sustaining because there are opportunities for economic development. So we need something like the Economic Development Act that they have down in St. Louis that gives people the opportunity to buy in and to create generational wealth, not the kind of wealth you get from owning a home, because if you don't own a home, you can't have generational wealth. And in order to have the generational wealth, you gotta have to have a generation to pass it on to. I'm talking about stuff that we could do now.
Well, I agree with the now part. The problem I even have, though, when you get into city government and political structures and who's running for office and who has to be elected, you have enough agencies and enough civic organizations now to make a dent. I go to the Urban League, tell the Urban League, do you have anything to address affordable housing? They say, no, we don't work in that area. We do have some home ownership programs, but we can't address.
So they're off the table in terms of a resource to address your problem. Just because they're a nonprofit doesn't mean that nonprofit now has to come in, change its mission to align itself to the need of a particular individual in the community. They have a mission and a purpose.
But see, here's the problem. You start to run into other organizations. The NAACP, they can't deal with that.
That's not what their purpose is.
But yeah, so the people that do or can deal with housing, they're gonna put you through the bureaucracy, the Halford or the Housing Authority, the maybe what's the people that build the Habitat
for Humanity
of humanity. You're limited now with the resources that's available. And this is where you get into the gridlock of just being another number. You go to the housing authority, you got to be put on a waiting list. You need housing now, and you're being told it's going to take 2 years.
Right, but the person that needs housing right now, the 2-year waiting list doesn't work. So what must they do? They have to go somewhere else, Jonathan. This is not being mean-spirited. It's just a matter of.
But I'm telling you, Stan, the options of where they have to go someplace else is limited and dwindling. I mean, you just like I just mentioned.
Right. So you've exceeded the capacity of the city to provide housing, Jonathan. If 20,000 people somehow migrate to Hartford, where are they going to stay?
Right.
We don't have housing for them. So yeah, that's a problem. But maybe they could go somewhere else. It's not incumbent upon us to now find housing for people who does this may sound harsh? It might even cost me the election. But the first person at the forefront of the best thing for their life is them.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are most in control. There are people moving from Connecticut, leaving the state to find opportunity elsewhere. My older kids don't live in Connecticut because there weren't jobs that they were comfortable working in, and those jobs that they wanted to do aren't here. So they moved to where other opportunity is.
Right.
They could stay here and complain about they can't get anything, or they can go and try and find opportunity somewhere else.
I will tell you, and we had former Mayor Shirley Franklin, and we have other people telling you, and this is why getting housing is a national problem. Yes, you can go other places for better job opportunities, and that can fit in to what your agenda, what you're looking for. But if you're thinking anywhere that if you're just going to pick up your bags and move to another part of the state and to another part of the country, and you don't have a certain amount of money, credentials to be marketable that stand out, you're not going to run into a wide open, easy.
Right. So what would you have? What would you suggest be done for the person that doesn't have money, doesn't have marketable skills, doesn't have a place to stay? What do you think should be done to accommodate them? You're a citizen in Hartford. It's your government. What would you instruct your elected officials to do to create opportunity for these 2,000 people who are on a waiting list? What would you have that? What would you ask to be done?
I think it's kind of what you said earlier, Stan. You have to develop the community where a place like Baltimore Street or some other rundown part of the cities throughout Connecticut is more desirable to live. So now if a person really needs a place to live, yes, he can move to a lower income area, and he may not have 5-star accommodations, but at least he got a somewhat safe, decent place to live that, you know, you're not dealing with issues every night of people harassing. Maybe you can't park in your driveway. It's just a lot of issues that goes on. People stealing your packages if you live in certain apartment buildings. So there's a lot of things that go along with living someplace. So if you develop the new housing projects are nice places to live now. You know, Westbrook Village, Bowles Park.
There's criteria to move into.
There's a criteria. And really, they're not that cheap neither. You know, to be perfectly blunt, they're very expensive. $1,250 a month to live in a 1-bedroom apartment at the new Westbrook Village. And then you still got to pay. I don't know. You pay attention to how much utility costs are going.
I do pay attention because I have electric bills and gas bill.
Right. So you add on to that
and water bill.
Yeah, you can't deplete all of your money just to get into a place, and then you don't have no money for food.
So Jonathan, what we have is we have a certain group of people who have a limited amount of disposable cash,
right?
Limited resource.
Mm-hmm.
So we still need to have places for individuals to live.
Right.
Now, criminals need a place to live.
You said that many times, right?
As sad as it may sound, people who have chemical addictions, they also need a place to live.
Right.
And if they are living where rent is low so that they can afford to live there, but you want to live there and don't want their element there, the only thing is to move them out.
Move them out, right.
So now where do they go? They don't have a right to live someplace? See, everyone has a right to live somewhere. And so we can't gentrify the community and gentrification has nothing to do with color.
I know that.
So if we're going to bring in a group of citizens that make more money, they're going to push out folk who don't.
Right.
And this is a vicious circle. So we have to find ways to make it such that everybody can
that's why I say the housing
live,
and what you said about
the housing. If the housing authority right now had 1,000 apartments come online in due time,
right,
those would fill up and we'd be back where we were.
Yeah.
So this is a problem that doesn't go away as long as people increase or people are drawn to the city. These are where your city planners come in and try their very best to stabilize the influx of individuals into a community. Do you have the schools? Do you have the medical facilities? Do you have the resources? Do you have the housing? Do you have the maintenance for those things? Do you have the inspectors to check on these things? All of these things have to happen. They don't just happen in a vacuum. So all of this stuff has to be taken into consideration.
Well, developing a community where it is livable and functionable and it's a good quality of life. I mean, I think anybody who has normal capacity and normal decent expectations would much rather live in a nice, clean, safe unit, whether it's a rental unit or a home, than let's say living in a boarding house, living in a motel, because there's no restrictions. As long as you come up with a little bit amount of money, you could live in a boarding house. You could live, and I don't know how you can afford to even live in a motel, but people are living in motels too.
They live in motels because they need a place to live.
But that's not cheap. I'm saying.
I understand it's not cheap, Jonathan. The cost of a thing almost becomes irrelevant when you need something.
Well,
people need food.
Yes.
They don't have any money. So what do? They take the food. Your need supersedes.
Well,
so if you have a need to stay somewhere, out of the rain, out of the cold, then people start moving into apartments. They start moving into motels. They start sleeping in tents. You need a place to stay.
Right.
Once the places to stay are no longer abundantly available, we have a problem. And I think it's one that is more availability of units than it is cost.
Cost, right.
Because the cost becomes a moot point if they're not around.
Yeah, but I'm saying even if the availability, what you said, is critical, but if you have available units and it's jacked up at a rate that people who need housing can't afford, it doesn't benefit the person if you have abundant available downtown housing apartments for $19,000 and $2,000 a month, and you as a working person are not eligible. The place is available. It's just not available for people that make that limited amount of money. So it is available. When they say affordable housing, that's the problem. We don't have enough built affordable housing. You may have more market rate housing being developed or planning to being developed quicker than you have affordable, and they call it affordable rate. That's kind of the new name that they call it. It used to be low income. Now it's switched somewhat to affordable rate. It's a complex problem, Stan, that's not going to be fixed overnight.
Well, I like to focus on fixes.
Well,
as opposed to the complexity of the problem, because the complexity of the problem is irrelevant. What is the fix?
But you can't fix this overnight, because if you got, like you mentioned many times before, more demand than supply, it's going to take a process to build. Even if you are planning to build housing, it's going to take a time span.
Right. So Jonathan, when someone presents an issue and a problem that's looking for resolution, and then we start to address the resolution, and then the comments are, well, we can't fix it overnight, then why bring it up? I mean, either we're going to try and find a solution, or one doesn't exist.
Well, if you got the ability to give people more money that they can move into or make a person or help a person in a position to get more money where they can afford the market rate housing, we can fix the problem now. Because I'm saying you have a $2,000 a month apartment that's available that
they just need the $2,000 a month.
That's what I'm saying. And you can't go to Section 8 housing vouchers.
Right. So the person that's living in there now is working round the clock so they can make their rent. The folk that don't have the money should just be given the money so they can roll up in there and chill.
Well, when I say give, help, if you need a job that pays a certain amount that you can afford the $2,000, I don't know if that's giving somebody I'm not saying give a person a free place.
Right. So we need to increase the skill set of those individuals. And by the way, still I'm old school. I believe that the person that has the need is the primary person responsible for fulfilling the need. Your need, while I can recognize and help you, I do the best I can, but it's really on you. My motto is, I don't mind helping you get up the hill in your lawn chair. I'm not going to carry you up the hill. I'm not going to push you up the hill. I expect you to carry the chair 1 foot, then I'll carry it a foot. But we got to work together. If you don't see the importance of the need to motivate you to be the chief architect of the fix, along with assistance and help, then it's no longer incumbent upon me to find a fix for you. The only way people can become more employable is to increase their skill set. There's schools, there's training, there's all kinds of things. And there is assistance. But what you're talking about, getting into a $2,000 a month apartment, I don't live in a $2,000 a month place.
What I'm saying, Stan, is
that's expensive.
Those are available right now. You're saying we have a problem right now that people need. Oh, I'm saying, and you're agreeing to some degree, telling people 2 years from now is not helping a person right now. So if all of the affordable rate units are filled to capacity and there's a waiting list for 2 years, that's not helping you now. And if you have the market rate that's available right now, but you don't have the means to get into the market rate, the problem hasn't been fixed. And what you said about you do need a place to live, yes, that's never going to be not addressed. But where you have a place to live could be, like you mentioned, a sleeping tent. It could be a car. It could be staying with some friends and families from week to week.
On the streets that you mentioned where the rent is $700 a month.
That too.
That has some available units. Right. So we do have $700 a month available units that people don't want to stay in. And we have $2,000 a month available units that people can't afford to stay in. And
there's a legitimate reason why people may not want to stay in the stuff, but that doesn't change the fact that they need a place to live.
Right. You see the circular?
But the bigger picture, what you said, Stan, is we need to develop our community to where even a $700 a month place is more decent. I'm not saying luxury, but at least more livable, where things are more in better functionable order. Not just, okay, the landlord is neglecting the place, he's not fixing up the place, and other factors that comes along the way.
Right. Well, we need these things, I believe, happen as a function. The enforcement of these things happen as a function of government.
Mm-hmm.
You at all times have the government you deserve. If you want things to change, you have to change the mindset, the direction, and trajectory of the government and your elected officials. If you elect the same thing, you're going to get the same outcome. There are fixes to these problems. There are logical fixes to these problems because the problem exists because of certain things. So if you have a pressure and demand for things to be available, and the landlord sees that the prices are going up because there's a lot of people who want his unit, and the people that are there right now, he's in this for the money. He's not in it for the humanity. So if we don't change how people feel about one another and have a little humanity, and if things are motivated by money and greed, then he's going to raise his rents.
Right.
Which means that puts people that are in a place out. But it also allows people who want a place to come in. You're just swapping individuals for the problem. It also means that you're going to have to find ways to shift priorities. I see less of a priority in giving development and tax incentives and underwriting the conversion of an office space downtown. Tens of millions of dollars to accomplish that would be better served by serving the people. But then there's the overarching big goal plan of making sure those buildings don't tank in their property value, which means there aren't tax dollars coming in to pay for the things. So these are the kinds of things that people need to sit down around a big round table, explain all the pros and cons, and then make some serious decisions as to what the priorities are that best serve the needs of the greater whole. Someone's going to walk away from that table very upset. Someone's going to walk away from the table happy. Hopefully we come to some sort of a compromise, because the problem is complex.
Well,
but it doesn't mean there aren't solutions. We're running out of time.
Out of time, Stan. So well, like I said, let me work on some things. Obviously, you have a show on Wednesdays. I mean, you may want to also address housing, at some point if I can't get someone available right now. But let's just see how things go with this issue and many other issues.
All right.
Okay.
All right. We're out of time. We'll see you next week. Ciao, ciao.
All right.
Hey, Hartford, Connecticut, I'm talking to you. We gotta get out and vote. Vote for Stan McCauley. It's our time. We gotta rise up and take it back. Vote for Stan McCauley.
Vote for Stan. You gotta vote for Stan McCauley. Vote for Stan. Vote for Stan. Oh yeah.
It's more than politics than just what your social covers. And it ain't somewhere written down in bold letters. Don't just take my word for it, do your research. Think of your future, look at your bigger picture. Suit and tie, clean up, unity for the righteous. Plotting on action, hands on access. With a light source vision, door to door knocking. Guerrilla style marketing, brainstorm as a collective. Real neighborhood suggestions. Only we know what it is where we living. To make real life decisions. Move on facts, make it manifest back.
You gotta vote for Stan McCauley. Vote for Stan. Vote for Stan. Vote for Stan. Oh yeah.
Look at your city, stop. Take a look around. Is opportunity flow into your house? Are you working? Wait, can you save some money? And is your neighborhood safe? Or is it a homicide every night?
My name is Marlon E. Starler Sr. Many of you may know me as the two-time welterweight champion of the world. I'm here to tell you that Democrat J. Stan McCauley, as our next mayor, will fight for you until the last bell. Help me throw a knockout punch. Go out and vote for Stan the man.
My name is J. Stan McCauley, and I approve this message.